Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we're going to learn about IELTS Writing Task 1. We're going to learn how to write a letter of request. This particular lesson is meant for the general training students. If you're going to be sitting for your IELTS Writing Task 1 as an academic student, then have a look at the description box and you will find a link to all the IELTS Writing Task 1s for the academic IELTS. So if you're a general training student, this particular lesson is for you. Now, to begin the lesson, I'm going to give you some really important information on how to write your IELTS Writing Task 1. The first thing that is important to remember is that you get 20 minutes to write your Task 1. Normally, you get 1 hour, that is 60 minutes, to write your Task 1 and your Task 2. So you should spend 20 minutes on writing Task 1. Spend about 3 to 5 minutes planning and then the rest of the time writing. Always leave 2 minutes to check your letter for spellings or grammar mistakes. Remember, you will need a full 40 minutes for Task 2, so don't go over 20 minutes for Task 1. The next point that is extremely important to remember is that you must write over 150 words. Write more than 150 words. Always aim for between 160 and 180 words to be safe. If you write less than 150 words, your band score is going to be lower. But if you write more than 150 words, you will not be penalized. Remember, your letter is worth 33% of your final writing score. You do not need to write an address on the letter. Pay close attention to who you're writing to and the relationship you have with that person, because that will decide your style of writing and your tone. Pay attention to the aim and the purpose of the letter. It is extremely important that you use the 3 points that IELTS gives you to structure your letter. All points must be included clearly in your letter. Remember, if you fail to include all the 3 points in your letter, your band score is going to be lower. You are expected to use your imagination to fill in details and decide the names of the people in your letter, for example. Always begin your letter by addressing the person and then an opening line, and always sign off appropriately. Now that I've given you some general guidelines on how to write your IELTS Writing Task 1 letter, let's get into this particular question. The first step is to read the question, make sure you understand it, and identify the 3 points that IELTS wants you to include in your letter. Now let's read this question together. You need to take leave from your work for 1 month. So I would underline take leave. 1 month. Personal reasons. So you need to be away from work for 1 month because of personal reasons. Personal reasons have nothing to do with work. Personal reasons could be reasons to do with your family. Maybe one of your family members is sick. Maybe you yourself, you are unwell and you want to be away from work for a month. Maybe you need to travel to address a pressing family issue, family problem. So whatever you write about, it has to be something personal. Write a letter to your boss. So that is important. I would underline the word boss. In your letter, you need to address these 3 points. A, explain the reason for the leave you need. So I would underline reason. You need to tell the boss why. Why do you need to be away from work? B, explain how you will keep up to date while you're away. How? How will you keep up to date with what is going on at work? C, suggest how your work could be covered while you're away. How? How will your work be covered? How will you ensure that while you're away, someone is doing your work? How? So now that we have understood the question, we know exactly what the question is about, and we understand the 3 points that IELTS wants us to include in the letter. The next thing is to begin writing your letter. Step 1, write the salutation. This is what you would call the greetings. Dear Mr. Rupert. In this case, we would not write Dear Sir. You use Dear Sir when you don't know the name of the person you're writing the letter to. In this case, it is your boss, so you know his name. Dear Mr. Rupert. You're supposed to come up with the names. Just make up the names of the people. Dear Mr. Rupert, comma. That is the first step. Don't forget that comma at the end. Step 2 is the introduction of the letter. In the introduction, you're supposed to tell the person why you're writing the letter. Now that ties in with the first point that IELTS wants us to include in the letter. Explain the reason for the leave you need. Explain the reason. So you need to explain why you're writing the letter. Now, I am writing this letter to request for a 1-month leave from my work in May in order to prepare for my upcoming wedding, which will take place in 2 weeks. I'm writing this letter to request. To request is to ask for a 1-month leave. In IELTS question, you are told you need to take leave from your work for 1 month. So for a 1-month leave from my work in the month of May, in May. And the reason? Because IELTS first point says, explain the reason for the leave. Why do you need to be away? In order to prepare for my upcoming wedding. Upcoming means that it's going to be happening in the near future. It's going to be happening very soon. My upcoming wedding, which will take place in 2 weeks. I have a wedding coming up in 2 weeks. So I need to be away from work for 1 month. Now, once you have addressed that first point, that is A, explain the reason for the leave, then you tick it, because put a tick there to know that I have already done that. Then after that, you move on to step 3. In step 3, we are going to address the second point that IELTS wants us to include in the letter, and that is B. Explain how you will keep up to date while you're away. Explain how. So while you're away from work, how will you keep up to date with what is going on there? Now, step 3, whilst away on leave. Now, I plan on keeping abreast with all work-related issues through email and the WhatsApp work group. If need be, I will be available for any Zoom calls too during working hours. So whilst away on leave. Now, whilst simply means while. If you want a burnt 9, then use whilst. Whilst away, that is while I'm away from work, I plan on keeping abreast with all work-related issues. Now, keeping abreast with means keeping up to date. Keeping abreast with means keeping up to date with all work-related issues. Work-related issues means anything that has to do with work. I plan on doing that through email and through the WhatsApp work group. And if need be, that is, if there is a need for it, I will be available for any Zoom calls during working hours. So in that step 3, I have addressed the second point, B. Explain how you will keep up to date while you're away. So tick that B because you have already done it. And then you move on to the fourth step. And in step 4, we are going to address the third point that IELTS wants us to include in the letter. And that is point C. Suggest how your work could be covered while you're away. So you need to give your boss some suggestions. While you're away from work, who is going to do your work? Now, step 4. To ensure that my work is still completed in my absence, I suggest that my co-worker, Mr. Brown, takes over my duties and responsibilities because he knows exactly what needs to be done to run the factory as a supervisor. Last year, he stood in for me too while I was away for a business trip to London for 3 weeks. He is therefore very well versed in my job undertakings. I'm very confident that he will do an excellent job. So in that particular paragraph that is in step 4, I have explained in details. I have suggested how my work could be covered while I'm away to ensure that my work is still completed in my absence. Absence means while you're away. The opposite of absent is present. If you're present, it means you're there. If you're absent, it means that you're not there. So in my absence, that is, while I'm not there, I suggest that my co-worker, Mr. Brown, co-worker means colleague. I have a colleague that I work with, and that is Mr. Brown, and I am suggesting that he takes over my duties and responsibilities. And then I give the reason why I have nominated him, because he knows exactly what needs to be done to run the factory as a supervisor. See, I work as a factory supervisor and I work with Mr. Brown, and he knows exactly what needs to be done to run the factory. So he is a perfect replacement for me. And to convince the boss further, I reminded him that last year he, Mr. Brown, stood in for me. To stand in for somebody is to replace somebody. For example, you can tell your friend, tomorrow I'm not going to be at work. Can you stand in for me, please? That means, can you do the duties that I do at work for me? Can you replace me? Can you substitute me? Can you replace me? So last year he stood in for me while I was away for a business trip to London for 3 weeks. He is therefore very well versed in my job undertakings. Now, to be well versed in something means that you're very familiar with something. You're very, very, very competent in doing something because you're very familiar with it. He is well versed in my job undertakings. Now, undertakings in this case means duties and responsibilities. And then to convince my boss further, I have ended that paragraph by saying, I am very confident that he, Mr. Brown, will do an excellent job. So in step 4, I have addressed the third point, that is, suggest how your work could be covered while you're away. And because I have already addressed that point, I'm going to tick that point, and now I'm confident that I have addressed all the 3 points in my letter. After that, you move on to step 5. In step 5, you're going to write the conclusion. And this is usually just one sentence. I look forward to a favorable response from you soon. I look forward to a favorable response from you soon. Now, favorable response means that you're looking forward to a positive answer. Okay, favorable means positive, response means answer. So I look forward to a favorable response from you soon. After that, you move on to step 6 and you sign off the letter. And because you know the name of the person who you are writing the letter to, remember this is a formal letter, but because you know the name of the person who you're writing the letter to, you use yours sincerely. We always use yours sincerely when you're writing a formal letter to somebody that you know. When you don't know the name of the person, you use yours faithfully. So if, for example, the letter was beginning with Dear Sir or Dear Madam, then you would use yours faithfully. But because we know the name of the person we are writing the letter to, because he is your boss, you begin with Dear Mr. Rupert and you end with yours sincerely. And don't forget that comma after sincerely. And then after that, you move on to the last step, and that is step 7. In step 7, you write your full name. Jack Hastings. You write your full name. That is your first name, Jack, and your surname, Hastings. Jack Hastings. So there you go. That's how you're supposed to write your task 1. And just to give you a recap of everything that I've talked about very briefly, step 1, read the question, make sure you understand it, and then identify all the points that IELTS wants you to include in the letter. Remember, you've got 20 minutes, so you have to do that very fast. Then after that, you begin writing the letter. The first step of writing your letter is the greetings. That is the salutation. Dear Mr. Rupert, don't forget the comma after that. Step 2 is the introduction, where you tell the person why you're writing the letter, and in that case then, that ties in with the first point, explain the reason for the leave. Okay, then step 3, you address the second point, and that is B, explain how you will keep up to date while you're away. And then step 4 is you address the third point, and that is suggest how your work could be covered while you're away. So you notice that you use the different points to structure your letter. After every point, you skip a line because that's a different paragraph. Remember to skip your line between all the different steps. After step 1, you don't skip a line. So step 1, then step 2, after that you skip a line, and then you write step 3. After that you skip a line, write step 4. After that skip a line and write step 5. After that skip a line and write yours sincerely, and then after that write your full names, or rather your full name, that is Jack Hastings. Okay, I hope that you have also explained the vocabulary that I have used in the letter. I hope it is clear. I hope that you now feel confident to be able to write this letter of request using this particular question. Now, if you found this video helpful, please give the video a thumbs up, share the video with somebody else so that you can also help them, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn your notification bell on so that you know when I upload a new video. I'm going to be uploading another video on IELTS Writing Task 1 for the general training students very soon. Now, thank you very much, everyone, and I shall see you in our next video. Now, thank you very much and take good care of yourself. Bye-bye.